A warning. This episode contains scenes that may be disturbing to some listeners. Discretion is advised.
Calaroga Shark Media. Hello and welcome to Murder Weekly. This episode is titled Murder in the Air Tonight.
In the neon-drenched streets of 1984 Miami, the air was thick with the electric buzz of nightlife. Detective Mick Reyes cruised down Ocean Drive in his Ferrari, the pulsating beats of Phil Collins melding with the humid night air, setting the tone for a city that danced on the edge of beauty and danger. Mick, with his sun-bleached hair and a wardrobe that screamed Miami chic, teal jackets over pastel shirts, was a man who knew every shadow of the city he protected. As the Miami skyline glittered against the dark canvas of the night, a call crackled through on his car radio, shattering the illusion of peace. Code 1054 at Ocean View condominiums on South Beach. Responding officers report a 1035. Scene is secure but needs detective oversight immediately. Arriving at the scene, Mick was greeted by his partner, Lynn Carter, whose sharp intellect and no-nonsense attitude had solved more cases than most in the precinct. The luxurious condo, a high-rise palace overlooking the shimmering Atlantic, had become a scene straight out of a nightmare. As Mick stepped into the opulent living space, his senses were assaulted by the stark juxtaposition of elegance and horror. The victim, Manny Martinez, a real estate mogul known for his ruthless business tactics and lavish lifestyle, lay sprawled across the white marble flooring, his body a canvas of violence. Blood, dark and almost too red against the pristine white, painted a gruesome picture. It had spattered across the expensive Persian rugs and splashed onto the abstract paintings that adorned the walls, turning objects of beauty into witnesses of a brutal end. The mogul's face, once the picture of confidence and power, was now frozen in an expression of shock and pain, his eyes wide open, staring into nothingness. The initial cut was precise, a deep, jagged line across the throat, severing the carotid artery, suggesting the killer was not only familiar with anatomy, but intended to inflict maximum horror. The brutality didn't stop there. Subsequent wounds were chaotic, frenzied stabs that punctured the chest and abdomen, each mark telling a tale of rage and hatred. It was as if the killer wanted to destroy not just the man, but what he represented. Near the body, the murder weapon, a blood-stained kitchen knife with a handle made of polished bone, lay discarded, its blade reflecting the muted lights of the city below. The meticulous placement of the knife suggested a message, a signature left with purpose. But it was the cryptic note left on the counter that added a chilling layer of mystery to the already gruesome scene. Written in a hurried, almost manic scrawl, it read, "The tide brings in more than waves." Mick broke the heavy silence that hung between them. He glanced at Lynn. "Cartel?" he ventured, the word hanging in the air like a verdict. The question was loaded. Lynn was steady, her analysis cutting through the ambiguity with clinical precision. "This isn't their style, it's too messy. Cartels are calculated. They aim to send a message without drawing unnecessary attention. This," she gestured to the chaotic scene, where blood seemed to seep into the very walls. "This is personal. It's designed to shock, to horrify. We're dealing with a sociopath, not a business transaction gone wrong." Their next stop was an encounter with one of their most unconventional informants, Twitchy Joe. Joe earned his nickname due to his constant nervous scratching, a telltale sign of his uneasy existence on the fringes of Miami's underworld. Despite his shifty demeanor, Joe had proven himself a reliable source of information, his ear to the ground in places the police couldn't penetrate without drawing unwanted attention. They found Joe in his usual haunt, a dimly lit dive bar nestled between a pawn shop and a laundromat, a place where the city's secrets often found a voice. As Mick and Lynn approached, Joe's eyes darted around nervously, the habitual scratching intensifying under their scrutiny. Joe greeted them, his voice barely above a whisper, as if fearing the walls themselves might be listening. "Heard you've been sniffing around the Martinez case. Dangerous waters. You're swimming in." Joe glanced around once more, his nervousness peaking. "It's not the cartels," he said hurriedly. "They're laying low, too low, but there's talk. Whispers of something new, a lone wolf playing games with the big dogs. Someone not afraid to splash around, make a mess. They say he's painting the town red, literally. Calls himself the artist." Lynn, ever the analyst, pressed further. "Any idea where this artist hangs out? Any connections? Any names?" Joe shook his head, the scratching momentarily ceasing as he locked eyes with them. "Nah, it's like chasing shadows, man. But word is he's got a taste for the dramatic, likes the high life. You might want to check the galleries, the openings. He moves in those circles, hiding behind a mask of sophistication." In the heart of Miami's eclectic art district, a clandestine gathering was taking place, hidden from the prying eyes of the law beneath the guise of an exclusive art show. The venue, a repurposed warehouse, throbbed with the pulse of electronic music, its walls adorned with pieces that blurred the lines between avant-garde and the macabre. It was here, amidst the city's affluent and the morally ambiguous, that Detective Mick Reyes, under the guise of Collector Mick Johnson, found himself. His cover, a thin veil at best, relied more on his ability to blend into the shadows than on the believability of his alias. Yet somehow, it had served him well over the years, allowing him to navigate the murky waters of Miami's criminal underworld with an ease that belied the danger of his profession. Mick moved through the crowd with a practiced ease, his eyes scanning the sea of faces for any sign of the sociopath they were hunting. His attention was not on the displayed art, which served as little more than a backdrop for the night's true purpose, the exchange of stolen and forbidden pieces that thrived in Miami's underground black market. It was then that he felt it, the prickling sensation on the back of his neck that came with being watched. Turning, he found himself face to face with a man whose presence seemed to command the space around him. Dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of wealth and taste, the man's eyes held a depth that was both captivating and chilling. "Mick Johnson, is it?" The man's voice was smooth, laced with an edge that hinted at a familiarity with danger. "An intriguing choice for a night like this. You have an eye for the unusual, I presume?" Mick met the man's gaze, his response measured. "You could say that. I find beauty in the shadows." The man's lips curled into a knowing smile. But the shadows can be a dangerous place to wander, Mr. Johnson. Some truths are best left undiscovered." Mick felt a chill run down his spine. The man's demeanor, the veiled threat in his words, and a certain coldness in his eyes left little doubt this was the artist. Mick maintained his composure. Without a little danger, life would be dreadfully dull, wouldn't it? The artist leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper that only Mick could hear. "Be careful, Mr. Johnson. Not all art is meant to be appreciated by the living. Some masterpieces are reserved for the dead." With that cryptic warning, the man melted back into the crowd. Mick slammed the door of his teal Ferrari. He sat for a moment in silence, the weight of the night pressing down on him. As he turned the ignition, the police radio pierced the quiet of the car. "Bravo 6-2, come in. Bravo 6-2, we have a 1034 in progress at Bayfront Park. Possible 187. Request immediate response." Mick grabbed the radio. This is Bravo 6-2, roger that. En route. He tossed the radio back on the passenger seat. The artist wouldn't be caught tonight, maybe not ever. A stark reminder of the relentless cat-and-mouse game that defined his existence in 1980s Miami. He flicked on the stereo, the opening drums of Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, filling the car, a fitting soundtrack to the complex narrative of his life.
Murder Weekly is a Calaroga Shark Media production, written and hosted by Aidan I. Flanagan, produced by Mark Francis, executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. Calaroga Shark Media,